What do marriage, appendectomies, and taking the MCAT have in common? You only do them once, or at least that's the plan. And because you only expect to do them once, it can be really disappointing and frustrating when it doesn't turn out how you'd hoped. Which is why in this video, I'm going to give you 4 tips for practicing for the MCAT so that you score well the first time around, making your transition from college to medical school as seamless as possible. As for any failed marriages or appendectomies, I can't really help you with that, sorry. Hi, I'm Thea Beckman, a learning coach with Brainscape, the world's smartest study and flashcard app. If you haven't yet discovered our certified MCAT flashcards, go check them out today because they are the secret sauce to learning the foundational science content you need to know twice as efficiently as any other study method you may be using. Also, make sure you subscribe to this channel for a steady stream of really helpful tips on doing well on the MCAT and getting started on your career in medicine. Now, with that said, here's how to do well on the MCAT the first time around, starting with my first tip. Turn your MCAT test prep mistakes into learning opportunities. Practicing is all about getting something wrong 1,000,000 times until you get it right. So don't be demotivated by bad or middling practice test scores. Instead, think of it as a ripe opportunity to learn. This is why we encourage MCAT students to spend as much time reviewing their results as they do taking the tests in the first place. Pluck apart every question and every multiple choice answer, whether you got it wrong or right, to understand the exact anatomy of that question, the best way to have answered it, and why the other options provided were incorrect. Through this deep scrutiny, you will become increasingly quick and skilled at understanding what MCAT questions are looking for, how to excavate the answers from their passages, and the best reasoning to work your way to a high score. And remember, the more practice you get, the better an MCAT test taker you'll become. So practice long and hard right from the start of your prep. My next tip for passing the MCAT the first time around is to use Brainscape to drill yourself on your knowledge gaps. As you progress through the science content and any practice test results or MCAT style questions, make a note of the facts you didn't know or you were unsure of, and the content areas you feel need further work. Then, make flashcards for those facts so that you can drill yourself on them until they're deeply ingrained in your memory. Better still, use Brainscape certified MCAT flashcards to do this review work. We've distilled the entire AAMC curriculum down into a collection of 4,200 neatly organized flashcards, which you can study anywhere, anytime via the web or our mobile app. Now, these flashcards cover every MCAT science subject with a special focus on high-yield topics. But the real secret sauce behind the success of Brainscape is our adaptive learning platform, which leverages decades of cognitive science to help students study twice as efficiently as the traditional study methods. Brainscape's MCAT flashcards are a powerful review tool to help you master the facts, so I really recommend that you use them to your advantage to make swift, efficient progress. My next tip is to learn to prioritize your work. In an ideal world, you would cover every concept, learn every fact, and work through every practice resource for the MCAT. But that would take months, and your time is valuable. More importantly, it's limited, especially if you have responsibilities other than the MCAT. So in these situations, one of the most important skills you can learn is prioritization. Learn which concepts are most heavily tested, like amino acids, experimental design, and analytic techniques, and which are unlikely to come up, like the exact structures of the 5 nitrogenous bases. Prioritize the heavily tested topics first, and then the lower yield topics next. If you have time to learn those topics, great. If not, you can rest easy knowing that your time was spent on more important material that is much more likely to pay off. Now, the same is true for practice tests and question banks. By far, the AAMC's practice resources, which are written by the MCAT test writers, should take priority because they are literally written by the actual MCAT test makers. So you know that those questions are going to be identical in nature to the one seen on the real test. Once you've worked through those questions and tests and cannot squeeze another drop of value out of them, then you can move on to the other practice test resources out there. Okay, my final tip for landing a great MCAT score the first time is to consistently review older content as you progress through newer content. There can be no worse feeling in the world than getting to the end of your science content review only to encounter a topic in an MCAT practice question and not remember it because the last time you saw it was weeks ago. Every day you should take time to review older concepts so that they stay fresh and crisp in your mind, even if it's just 20 to 30 minutes per day. Now, Brainscape is an excellent tool for this kind of review because it automates the repetition of older concepts based upon your confidence in them, which essentially never allows you to forget them. You can also randomize your study so that you get tested on topics across multiple science fields, which will keep you on your toes. So, make sure you're constantly reviewing your science content, and it'll become more and more ingrained in your brain until eventually it becomes a permanent part of your knowledge bank. So there are 4 tips for passing the MCAT the first time around. Turn your MCAT test prep mistakes into learning opportunities by deeply scrutinizing every question you answer. Use flashcards to draw yourself on your knowledge gaps, particularly Brainscape certified MCAT flashcards. Learn how to prioritize your studies and question practice so that every minute you spend studying has maximum ROI. And consistently review older content so that you don't forget anything as you progress through new content. For lots more tips on scoring well on the MCAT, check out our full Academy guides. Links to those in the show notes below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for a steady stream of helpful MCAT advice. Finally, remember that if you're consistent, practice a little bit every day, and lean on Brainscape to address your knowledge gaps, you can and you will rise to the challenge of the MCAT.